So is the live stream on?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Philip Davis. I'll be chairing this hearing of Subcommittee A of the Licensing and Public Protection Committee of Birmingham City Council. We ask everybody to mute their microphones initially in order to help with the sound quality and avoid any background noise. And then, with the exception of committee members, we ask anyone participating to turn off their cameras. Usually, committee members have their cameras switched on throughout the hearing, unless there's some problem with bandwidth, in which case I may ask them to turn them off. Obviously, it's important for obvious reasons that everyone attending and making representations are able to hear me and the members of the subcommittee and officers. Any distractions could result in the meeting being suspended temporarily or to another time and date. For the arrangements of these types of meetings. This is a public meeting and is therefore being live streamed on the City Council's website in order that the general public can view it. Notice of recording webcast. This is the formal agenda, item 1. I advise the meeting that this meeting will be webcast for live and subsequent broadcast via the Council's meeting YouTube site, and that members of the press and public may record and take photographs except where there are confidential or exempt items. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded they must declare all relevant pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests arising from any business to be discussed at this meeting. If a disclosable pecuniary interest is declared, a member must not speak or take part in that agenda item. Any declarations will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Item 3, apologies and notification of nominee members. Apologies were submitted on behalf of Councillor Simon Morrell, and we're pleased to welcome Councillor Penny Wagg as the nominated substitute member. Fourth, appointment of subcommittee. We note the appointment of the City Council by the City Council, the committee and chair for the municipal year 2022-23. Members of the subcommittee may nominate another member of their respective party group on the Licensing and Public Protection Committee to attend in their place. Any member nominated must have had formal training as set out in paragraph 6.1 of the Licensing Committee Code of Practice for councillors and officers. 5, delegations to subcommittee. To note the delegations to the subcommittee as follows. The delegation is to determine matters relating to the Licensing Act 2003, the Gambling Act 2005, Hackney carriage licences, private hire licences, and such business as may be referred by the Assistant Director of Regulation and Enforcement. Item 6 is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on 14th of March 2022, 28th of March 2022, 28th of March 2022 at 12 noon. The others were at 10 o'clock, and 25th of April 2022 at 10:00 hours, and the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of May 2022 at 10:00 hours. So we note those minutes and they'll be signed as appropriate. So can I welcome you to this hearing for an application in respect to Chiver on Allen Rock Road, Birmingham B8 1LL. As I said at the beginning, I am Councillor Phil Davis. I'm chairing this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. With me are 2 other members of the subcommittee, Councillors Mary Locke and Councillor Penny Wagg. Also present in this meeting are the following officers: the licensing officer, Mr. Bhupinder Nandra, the committee manager, Ms. Katie Townsend, and the committee lawyer, Ms. Joanna Swampala. So Mr. Siddiq is here representing the applicant. So Mr. Siddiq, could you just identify yourself?
Sorry, didn't hear that, sorry.
Are you okay, Mr. Siddiq? Are you hearing us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. There are no other representations. There are no representations today, as I understand it. I'll just check. The planning department has submitted a representation, which we have in writing. Is there anyone from the planning department here for verbal representation? No, they did indicate that they weren't sending anybody, but we have the representations in writing, as I say. So there's no issue of withdrawal of representations. So I assume all parties have read and understood Licensing Committee procedural rules sent out with a notice of today's hearing. I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules given the nature of the hearing being online to reflect the fact that the meeting is taking place in that way. And I want to assure everybody any such amendments will not impact on the parties' right to a fair hearing. We use a chat function to communicate as necessary. You'll find that in it's a speech bubble at the top of your toolbar generally. What we'd like to do is just confirm that everybody can access that. If you could just find the chat function and then just type your name in, that will give us the additional communication we need if there are any issues. So I'm just going to the chat process now. It also helps us keep a record of the meeting attendance. So there we are. I'm just typing it in. We can all do that. Okay. And then we return to the main screen. If you wish to speak at any time, you can, of course, indicate verbally, but the chat is monitored, so it just tells me, well, it tells the officers, because I can't necessarily see all the detail on my screen, that somebody wants to speak or there is some other point that people wish to raise. And if you keep the chat column open for the entire duration of the meeting, that will assist us. I don't think anybody's dialed in on audio telephone, so we don't have that issue. So with the exception of subcommittee members, please keep the camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there are problems with the bandwidth, I may ask everybody to turn their cameras off, as we find that assists often with dealing with that particular problem. Mr. Siddiq, are there any preliminary issues you want to raise at this stage? This is usually about the way the meeting works. Is there anything you want to raise about that?
No, I'm fine at the moment, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So the procedure will be, firstly, I'm going to ask the licensing officer, Mr. Bipindanandra, to present his report. Then I'll ask you, Mr. Siddiq, to say whatever you want to. And that is, you have 20 minutes to make your case for your application. Obviously, I'm asking all parties to speak slowly and clearly because the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes and the meeting's being live streamed on the website. If at any time it's somebody else's turn to speak, if you could mute your microphone, and again, the chat function is there for you to communicate if your microphone is on. Members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. We don't have any representation, so there won't be any cross-examination issues anyway. And we'll, again, if members, I'll come to members in turn if I want to ask a question, so don't worry about the process there. If at any point you can't hear, I'm having problems with your internet connection, use the chat facility to alert the meeting manager, and then I can, I can intervene as necessary to make sure that the communication is correct. And again, we may turn off one aspect, microphones or cameras, to try and rectify that. It might be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice, Mr. Siddiq. And that is, we go into private session. And we turn off the live stream, obviously, so it's purely private. And then we take the advice, have the discussion, and then come back to this hearing. We can use that process to do that. If at any time the live stream being broadcast on the council website fails, I'll ask you all to mute microphones and cameras and to stop speaking until the live stream is restored. If we go into private session, as I say, the meeting will pause the live stream, so it won't be seen by anybody else. And once the private part of the meeting is over again, we start the live stream to put the meeting again. At the end of the meeting, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. So, Mr. Siddiq, you have a chance in 5 minutes to sum up what you want to say to us. And then no decision, of course, will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. And the decision will be made, the members will report in order to determine the decision. We go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. If we need to clarify any point, Mr. Siddiq, we'll telephone you at that stage. I mean, this rarely happens, but it could happen, so I'm just making that clear. The members will then make their decision, as I said, in private, and then you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Okay, that's the procedure. So what I'd like to do now is ask the licensing officer, Mr. Bhupinder Nandra, to present his report, please. Mr. Nandra.
Thank you, Chair. Chai Bar Limited applied on the 8th of April 2022 for the grant of a premises licence for Chai Bar 1 Alum Rock Road, Birmingham B81LL. The purpose of the report is to consider a representation that has been made in respect of an application for a premises licence which initially sought to permit the provision of late night refreshment for consumption both indoors and outdoors from 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. Monday to Sunday. After discussions with Environmental Health, the applicant has agreed to amend the scope of the application with late night refreshment to operate from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. Monday to Sunday. The premises is to remain open to the public from 2 p.m. until 2 a.m. Monday to Sunday. A representation has been received from Planning as a responsible authority, which is attached at Appendix 1. The application is attached at Appendix 2. Conditions have been agreed with Environmental Health and the applicant, which are attached at Appendix 3, and the site location plans are attached at Appendix 4. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, or exclude from the licence any other licensable activities to which the application relates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So now, Mr. Siddiq, we come to you. You get your chance now to set out why you want the licence. So could you please do that? And as I say, you have 20 minutes as necessary to do that. And then questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Councillors, to give the opportunity to speak on behalf of the client, Chai Bar. Today she's not able to attend herself, so we've taken representation. The business has been set for a period of about 2 years now and provides a service where they provide snacks and coffee and tea to the local area, the local community. With the demand from the clients, especially, I don't know if you're familiar with Alum Rock Road itself, it's basically late night refreshment is quite common on Alum Rock Road, and there is a market and a demand by the clients who are utilising the Chai Bar for tea and coffee late in the evening. So the request was that originally we put the application in till 3 a.m. in the morning, and as we spoke with Environmental Services, they requested that we return it back till 2 o'clock, which we're happy to do. Therefore, this facility is to facilitate the local community that requires, as demanded for this. So this is the reason why the application was put in.
Okay. As I say, you have a chance to say something at the end. We can ask you some questions now if that's
fine. If you'd like to ask some questions, that's fine.
Okay, you're okay for questions then, right? Councillor Locke, you have any questions?
Just a couple about where will things like rubbish be? Will there be a bin provided? And about deliveries and collection, you know, because of it being in a residential area, you know, make noise and things like that.
There is bins provided on site that are collected on a weekly basis by a registered company that take the rubbish away. Also, in relation to majority of people will park on the main road itself where there's parking permissible, come over, place an order and take the tea or coffee with them really. So there is a couple of seats on the inside for people who wish to stay, but 90% of customers actually take the coffee or tea away basically with them. So yes, there are bins provided on site, both an external bin and then there's rubbish collection fully happens on a weekly basis.
And any deliveries that the business may have, will that be at a reasonable time because of disturbing residents?
Absolutely. Deliveries happen during the daytime, so there's no deliveries during the evening at all.
Okay, that's all. Thank you very much.
Councillor Wagg, do you want to ask a question?
No, I think Councillor Locke has asked the ones I was going to ask.
Okay, thank you. From me, Mr. Sadiq, now I'm looking at the map. We've got a map in the documents and it shows Allen Rock Road, and I think it's a roundabout at the bottom of Washford Heath Road, isn't it? What I'm interested in is the character of the road, really, where you are. There's a dot showing obviously where the facility is. Across the road, there's some numbers, which I assume are private houses, are they? I mean, what's the nature of the area, right by where you are?
All of Allen Rock Road is commercial.
Yeah.
There's no residential property on Allen Rock Road apart from, I assume there's some flats above some retail shops. We can't pinpoint exactly which ones are. Across the road, I've not seen any flats. Mainly we've seen commercial and offices. I think there are some flats that were created on the neighbouring properties, which was a new build at some point, which is owned by the same landlord. But I believe there's no aspect of concern about noises. We've not had any complaints of noise for this application.
Yeah. What's right next door? I'm looking at the map again, and there's the pink indicates generally properties in use, either commercial or residential, but there's just a brown area next door. Is that open land or what?
There's open land at the back, which is a public car park for what used to be the old co-op many years ago. So I think that accommodates about 250 car parking spaces, which is open throughout the day. So there's a lot of to and fro.
And is that open? Is that open during the hours of use that you suggest, between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m.? Would people be able to park there?
No, in the evening there's no parking on that. That's closed after 10 p.m. But the front, opposite the actual premises, and in front of the adjacent retail shops, there's all parking across there. Which on Allen Rock Road, after about 8 o'clock, it's not busy. It reduces substantially by about 80% of traffic, and therefore there's a lot of readily available car parking spaces there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks. That's very helpful. You've just given me a picture of what it's like there when you're trading. Okay. Thank you for that. I think that's all the questions from members. Just get back to my list of things we've got to address, and so we've had written representation from the planning department, but they're not here to make any other representations. I think actually, Mr. Sadiq, we're on to your closing submission. As I said, you've got 5 minutes really to sum up what you would like to the committee and what you want the committee to do. Okay.
Dear Chair and councillors and the licensing committee, we feel that there's a positive contribution of this premises being granted the licence to the local community, and what has adapted over the past 3 to 4 years within Allen Rock Road, that there's a number of coffee shops that have opened and contribute positively to the local environment for evening and late night trade for tea and coffee. You'll find a lot of the local facilities are open late, which provide a large food market, and then after some food, people tend to go for a tea and coffee as a social activity as well. So it does help to integrate the local community and the local shopkeepers and provide longevity and provides good business within the vicinity. Allenmark Road is known for its food area, similar to Ladypool Road, and does provide and contributes well for the local community. We get a lot of external customers coming from various small areas like Telford, Coventry, Wolverhampton, Walsall during the daytime trade. But during the evening, it's mainly local community groups that go for tea and coffee in the area. So we feel that it will provide a positive outcome for the local community. It's providing a facility that we've not had issues with. In principle, parking is not an issue in the evening. And like we said, we have bins that are provided directly outside and a bin collection carried out on a weekly basis. And car parking is also provided by the public car park on the local vicinity. So we feel that this will give a positive contribution to the local area. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sadiq, thank you very much. That is your submission then. So I'll now ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members of the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into the private session while the subcommittee makes its decision. And as we've said, you'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. Before I close, while Mr. Nandra's here, are you dealing with the next case, the 12 o'clock case?
Yes, Chair, I am.
You are, okay. Could you hold on for about 10 minutes and we'll call you back in if that's all right when we've deliberated on this, and so we can
Absolutely
discuss,
yeah.
Have the usual briefing about the next case.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll now close this hearing, the public hearing, and go into the private session to make our decision. So colleagues, please join me back in the private session. Thank you very much.